G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're just going to be covering a few things that's happened during the week. So a few things have come out this week. We've had the release of the Forza Leagues, which is a little bit off to a rocky start, but we'll talk about that in a minute. We've also had the Forza MU Wheel program has now got its final release. So if you're a Forza player on PC, you should probably check that out. Or Emu Wheel, because I'm from Australia. EMU spells emu, which is a local animal here. I know it's supposed to be short for emulation wheel, I believe, but for some reason, whenever I read it in my head, I just always call it Emu Wheel. But the Emu Wheel is a great piece of software that's been made by First Plateau. It adds support for a lot of unsupported steering wheels, and it gives you a lot more customization of the force feedback in the Forza Motorsport games on the PC anyway. Unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done for the Xbox users. It's a really good tool. I highly recommend just getting it so you can have a play around. It seems to do wonders for some of the lower end consumer wheels, like all the Logitech wheels and the Thrustmaster wheels as well. People are reporting that they're getting much better feel out of their wheel using this third-party software. So I'll leave a link to that in the description so you can check that out. If you have any issues at all, I'll also leave a link to the Discord server where First Plateau helps out a lot of people, and just want to give him a shout out. He's done a tremendous job in helping a lot of people out getting their wheels working on the PC, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that's just give him the big thumbs up for what he's been doing. My thoughts so far on the Forza Leagues, it's a bit of a mixed bag really. When I first tried to join a lobby, it took me about half an hour just to get into a race, my first race. And I think the first one I got into, it black screened and I didn't even get onto the track. So I spent another probably 5 or 10 minutes just trying to find another lobby. Had to close the game down and restart it. Finally got into a race. I managed about 5 or 6 races. I finished first in about 3 of them, I think. But what I noticed is, as you start progressing through the lobby, you get placed higher up the grid order in each race, you actually get less points for starting near the front and finishing up near the front than what you would if you start near the back and make your way up sort of mid-pack or top to middle pack, which is a little bit of an issue with the balance in the point system, in my opinion. The grid ordering seems to work fine. I like how your grid ordering for the next race is kind of determined by the lap times of the previous race. It kind of makes it like a sort of like a qualifying thing. So if you want to start the next race from a really good position, if you just bang out a really good clean fast lap in the previous session, it's pretty much like qualifying you for the next race, which I think is really cool. But like I said, the points, the way the rewarded points are balanced out, it seems to be skewed towards the people that start near the back, as they'll get more points if they have a good or a reasonable finish. Whereas in one race, I think I started pole position and I finished in first place. I thought I was going to get a really good point score. I think I only managed about 100 points, whereas if I start from the back and make my way up, I normally average about 200 to 250 points. So it's a bit of a shame that some people that are fast in whatever lobby they're in, if they stay in the lobby too long, then it seems like they get punished for being fast. So hopefully as things progress on in the Forza Leagues, we'll see some changes being made. But for now, I did have a good bit of fun once I finally was able to get in, until of course my wheel decided to shit itself. Anyway, Leagues, yeah, off to a bit of a rocky start, but I'm sure things will improve soon. What else happened during the week? Well, my main steering wheel has succumbed to a motor failure. I was racing away in the leagues and I forgot to turn the cooling on, and after about 5 races or so, I noticed there's some really heavy drag on the steering, and I can barely even turn this now. It's got that much drag. So I pulled the motor out and took it to my work. I pulled it apart and cleaned it out. When I put it back together, it started turning real nice and freely again, so I thought I might have fixed it. Bring it home, popped it back in the wheel, and it just didn't do anything. And because I didn't really have any original signs of a motor failure, which is normally like a heavy cogging force as you're turning the wheel, and also the wheel can shut itself down and restart by itself. I didn't have any of that, so I pulled the motor apart again here at home, and I noticed what actually happened inside the motor was some of the plastic parts that hold the brushes in place got that hot that they actually melted together and caused the brushes to push hard against the armature, and which is what is causing this drag. So I folded it all out, cleaned it all up, and put it back in the wheel, and what do you know, first go she lit up again. I did about 2 more races in the Forza Leagues, and on the second race, on the final lap, the wheel started just heavy notching as I was turning, and I was like, oh no, this isn't good. I tried to get through the lap, but it just got worse and worse, and then smoke literally started pouring out from the motor. So I was like, oh no, hit the off button, left the cooling running to try and cool it down a bit so it didn't catch fire or anything like that. But I was pretty devastated, so I'm probably gone down in rank again in the Forza Leagues because I didn't finish the race. But otherwise, I've got 2 new motors exactly the same as this on the way. I've got 2, one to replace the motor in this wheel, and the second one so I can start modding this wheel. Now this one is just a stock CSR Elite. What I'm planning to do with this one is try and fit this big beast of a motor. So as you can see there, it's that big, it hangs quite a way out the back here, and I had to move the PCB on a second bracket arm so I could have enough space behind this, and obviously that means I can't run the back cover on this wheel. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and shoehorn it into this wheel and do some modifications at the back here so I can try and fit it in with the back panel cover on. So my idea is, rather than adding extra brackets to shift this sideways, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it upside down, because the mounts on these are sort of to one side. So if I flip it upside down, this PCB should sit further this side, which should just give the motor enough room to fit there with the back cover on. But in doing so, flipping that over, I'll have to drill and tap a couple of extra threads in this back X panel here. Just because these top holes here are actually a slightly different center to the bottom ones. So we'll get that done, and then obviously we'll have to lengthen some of these wires to reach the new positions, because our motor connector is going to be on this side, and all the power button connectors and everything will be on this side too. So it's going to be a bit of a fun experiment, and then hopefully once this is upside down, all the connectors will be on the top. So I'm hoping I can have just a nice neat little cutout in the top here where I can just plug the power, pedals, shifter and USB plug. So hopefully that comes along nicely. I've also ordered another quick release for this one and a new wheel rim. I'm going to do up another modded wheel rim, something similar to this one here. But what I'm planning to do is, instead of drilling holes in the face of the rim, which looks quite messy, I'm going to get some extra aluminium and make up some brackets for the extra buttons. So I'll have probably 2 buttons on this side, 2 on this side, and then I'll have to get a D-pad switch and set that up somewhere. But I'll suss all that out once the parts arrive. In the meantime, I can either, because this wheel's not working, I can put some different motors in there. These ones are just the stock ones, which are quite poo, to be honest. They're not very good at all, and they suffer quite badly from heat fade. These ones here were ones I experimented with a while ago. They're just similar in spec to the stock motors. I think they have a little bit more torque, a little bit higher RPM, but these, as you can see, are a ball bearing motor, which is one of the biggest downfalls of the stock motors. Because they run a V-belt system, you need to have a lot of side load on these to keep traction on the belt, and because they're a non-ball bearing motor, they're just a bush, the more side load you put, the more friction is caused by the motors. So the higher your belt tension on the stock motors, the worse the feel of the wheel actually becomes, because you add more drag, which is kind of like a damper. So I can use this wheel as well, but I'm really not that keen on this wheel. As you can see, I've only got one wheel option for it, which is the universal hub, and it's a pain in the bum to set everything up on it. Whereas on my CSR Elite, with all my wheel rims that I have that I can use, I have something for every occasion. I've got my formula rim, I've just got the stock rim, which I've mounted the quick release system on there, which works with my wheelbase, and then I've got my GT rim with paddle shifters, this GT rim just with no paddle shifters but buttons and the LCD screen, and then I've got my drift wheel. So as you can see, that's pretty much the reason why I love this wheel so much. It's just because of the options I have, and everything is kind of personalised to my tastes, whereas on this wheel everything sort of has to be predetermined, unless I want to spend heaps of money and get more of these, because I think these are worth about $400 or $500 in my country, so they're really expensive for what they are, and I just can't see myself spending that much money to get a few more wheel rims when, you know, I already have this one here which does the job fine. And the main reason why I did this wheel, which was originally a CSR Elite, but it's been converted to a Club Sport wheel, as you can see by the quick release there. The main reason I did this was for the newer Forza games on the Xbox One, because they chose not to support older steering wheels. So I had to try and upgrade. I went with a TX to start with, and I really wasn't too fond of the wheel after having the privilege of using this wheel. So I ended up selling it to a mate for a good price, and then I eventually started working on getting this one up and running with the Xbox One. It did the job fine, but yeah, now that the Forza games are coming out on PC, I don't really have any real desire to use this wheel, even though it does have the twin Bueller motor setup. So it punches out forces pretty similar to this one. In fact, they're both pretty similar, just because this one has the two motors. It does have a little bit of extra drag, because obviously the more pulleys you add, the more times the belt has to bend, and the more time the belt bends, the stiffer the steering wheel will get. So having the single motor like this one here, even though the motor's toast at the moment and it's not really turning, when it turns, it turns much more freely than this one, which is really good for drifting, and I just prefer the overall feel of this wheel. Anyway, that's going to wrap up today's video. Hope you enjoyed watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.